Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is the first stream I'm hosting from my brand new true crime channel. I'm JT from the crime scene, and I'm with my friend Jay from Guilty of Crime. How you doing, Jay?
Hello. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, and I'm excited to dive back into this case because all the spotlight should be on Corey, really, and these kids.
Absolutely.
hmm
I there's some people I noticed today and I hadn't had a chance to come back and respond. There were some people on one of the posts that I put up, and I noticed another post that didn't want to come back to watch this episode. They want to watch us, of course, but it's too harsh on them. So our first clip that we're going to get into will lessen the harshness a little bit with Dr. Grande and talk about it clinically and not just show the treadmill scene that I know is triggering a lot of people, and I understand that. So
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say that. Yeah, I think some people they want to see it, but they're like, damn, I can't see that
I,
treadmill scene again.
I totally understand because when I first saw it, I had to turn it off. I had to pause the video. I just couldn't watch it, Jay. I couldn't watch it. It was it
I,
was it was tough.
you have a son and he's close to that age, and I 100% get it.
That
Yeah,
would
that hits
his
me
head
like
out there just on that little kid's body, trying to run as quick as he can, and it just yeah, it upsets the hell out of me. That's for sure. I'm sure it upsets most people, but when you can literally picture your child's face on there.
Yeah, that hit me like the Madeline Soto case, right? Like we talked about before. So that one's really close with my daughter, and I just can't I'm not going to stop that case until everybody's convicted and there's justice. So I could feel you on this one, and I'm here for you and with you today. So say whatever you want, and then when you're ready, we'll play the Dr. Grande. It's a lot more mellow for folks, and then we'll give them a trigger warning after that for whatever's next to come. They could hop off if there's anything. I don't know because it's your show. I don't know what you have planned for today.
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to start out with the Doctor Todd, and I don't think there's any trigger warnings in that. I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, not really. He's very gentle. He talks slow and it's very clinical, so we're not gonna watch that treadmill over and over. I know a lot of channels are doing that, and I can't. They're like zooming in, and they're talking real graphic about the
Yeah,
biting and stuff. Yeah, and I'm like, you don't have to say that over and over. Like, we get it. And I know it's for likes and subscribes, which, by the way, everybody like and subscribe right here. JT, the crime scene. Let's get him up and running faster than that damn treadmill. All right.
thank you. Um, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share mine?
Did you download it?
I did not, but I can share it off of it.
Okay. That's okay. I'll do it. I'll go ahead and start the first one, and then I also speed them up. So I'll show you there. Let me do that. I usually don't play it at normal speed, just FYI, because I feel like they go so slow. So let me pull this up, and that way people can go also to the other people's channel, right? If they want to slow it down. So let me just I'll share it in 1 second, y'all. Let me speed up a little. I just got off of work and I was on the wrong stream for a second, everybody. So I'm a little out of sorts, but
Hey,
we're
we
getting.
made it, and we're doing good.
We did, and I'll say hi to everyone while we're showing this, and we'll stop and talk about it. So here we go. Let's listen to what he has to say about the treadmill incident with Christopher, and always justice for Corey Micciolo, folks.
Monday. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Christopher Gregor? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Christopher Gregor was born on May 21, 1992, and lived in the state of New Jersey. He attended Monroe Township High School, where he was an all-state defensive lineman. After graduating, he briefly attended a university in Middletown, Connecticut. In November 2010, Christopher was arrested for allegedly stealing from a woman's room in a dormitory and attacking 2 male students who tried to...
And I hate stopping right away, but I am, because this is interesting background information on him, some of it that I didn't know. I saw people in chat talking about him and saying that he had done this or done that, but I hadn't actually really heard it. How about you?
No, I haven't heard that yet.
Okay, yeah. So this man has a history of that, and they should never gave that child to him and then denied the emergency custody. So anyway, let's go further. This is just, it's new information that I hadn't really heard. So here we go.
Stop him during his escape. He allegedly used his fists and elbows in the attack. In 2013, Christopher started working as a marketing intern in Florida. After that, he was a sales associate. In 2016, he earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from a different college and started working as a real estate agent in New Jersey. In June 2017, Christopher started working as a math teacher in Baltimore, Maryland. Between August 2017 and April 2018, he was charged with a number of offenses, including assault, robbery, and destruction of public property. Starting in February 2018, Christopher worked as a real estate agent in New Jersey. In 2019, he earned a master's degree in secondary education and teaching. As far as romantic contact, Christopher became involved with a teenager named Brianna Micciolo. On May 1, 2014, 17-year-old Brianna had a son named Corey Micciolo.
All right, so that is a little bit of the backstory, and maybe we heard about it. Maybe I read it before, but sometimes my memory needs to be jogged. I didn't realize that she was 17, and he says a teenager. I don't know the age difference between the two, but I wonder if he was a bit older, which isn't even right in the first place. Do you remember that, any of this here?
I did hear that he was much older than her. My wife is all into this case, so she was giving me some deets. I'm like, oh, interesting. She's like, yeah. So, and she had him pretty early, so and he didn't even know, and it's like, it's wild. It's like some of these cases, I suppose, it's for the money, but it's like as soon as some of these monsters, like the kid's doing just fine until these monsters get in their life, that the courts say, yeah, sure, you can take them, and then not shortly after, something happens to these kids.
Yeah, this is, I just didn't think of it that far back. But yeah, when I was reading the ages later on about how old he was and how she was, but she was a teenager, he said it perfectly. And she made some mistakes, but I think that she righted her wrongs when she was calling the Child Protective Services when she did, and unfortunately it was too late. So keep that in mind, everybody, that she really did try. All right.
Christopher was the father, but he did not know that at the time. He only learned about this later when Brianna sought child support. From that point on, Christopher and Brianna shared joint custody. In March 2020, Christopher was awarded full custody of Corey because Brianna had difficulty regulating her intake of substances. Christopher lived in an apartment in Barnegat, New Jersey, and Brianna lived in Englishtown, which is about an hour north. There was a lot of tension between Christopher and Brianna. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On March 20, 2021, Christopher and his son entered the fitness center for the Atlantic Heights apartment complex. This is the apartment complex where Christopher lived. A surveillance camera captured their activity. Initially, Christopher was lifting weights as his son was on a treadmill. At some point, Christopher went over to the treadmill and increased the speed.
Yeah, there may be a trigger warning in this, folks. I watched this and I thought he was just showing clips of it and images, not the actual video, but trigger warning for anybody. He usually doesn't stop and show it again and keep dwelling on the harshness. So trigger warning for anybody at all that needs that.
Corey was unable to keep up and fell off the treadmill several times. Christopher could be seen picking Corey up and putting him back on the treadmill. After a few of the falls, Corey stood up on his own and tried to jump back onto the moving treadmill to continue running. He fell, slammed into the belt of the treadmill, and was thrown backward onto the floor. At one point during this ordeal, Christopher appeared to bite Corey's head. Corey sustained bruises during this incident. When his mother, Brianna, saw them, she filed an emergency order for custody, but it was denied on April 1, 2021. That same day, Brianna picked up Corey for scheduled visitation. She brought him to see a pediatrician. Eventually, Corey was evaluated in a hospital. He was discharged at 1 a.m., now on April 2. Brianna kept Corey that night and brought him back to Christopher at 9:03 a.m. At 3:48 p.m., still on April 2, Christopher brought Corey to the Southern Ocean.
All right, so there it is. I hadn't seen that footage before. How about you? Did you? It may be in the next video, but this is new, and I'm wondering what you think.
This is the footage. I did watch this of him bringing the child in, and he does look pretty limp. But I did notice his arms are still around his dad's neck, so he's got at least enough strength to do that.
Right.
But otherwise, he's not doing much else. He doesn't look like he's even picking his head up and looking around, to be honest.
Right. Lethargic for sure. Yeah, good call on that. Now that you say that, I can see that he's got his arm wrapped around him, and I like Dr. Grande because he's explaining it rather than like the shock factor, which I always love Nancy Grace, and we'll get into that next. But I like when you can tell a story without having to, show some gruesome things. So this is good for the people that didn't want the gruesome and are triggered by it. So after this, there will be a big trigger warning.
Yeah.
And what's up, Carly? We missed you yesterday. All right.
Medical Center in Manahawkin. He told medical providers that Corey woke up from a nap, slurring his words, stumbling, nauseated, and experiencing shortness of breath. As a CT scan was being administered, Corey started having seizures. Medical providers attempted to save his life, but they were not successful. Corey was pronounced dead at 5:03 p.m. Christopher did not wait around to see what would happen next. Rather, he left the hospital. He drove to Tennessee before returning to New Jersey. On the next day, April 3, an autopsy was performed on Corey's body. The medical examiner ruled that Corey's death was caused by blunt force injuries with cardiac and liver contusions, acute inflammation, and sepsis. At that time, the manner of death was ruled undetermined. On July 7, 2021, Christopher was arrested and charged with endangering the welfare of a child in relation to the Treadmill incident from March 20. Even though this was a serious charge, falling on the treadmill did not appear to cause Corey's death. Christopher was released on bail. In September 2021, Corey's case was reviewed by a forensic pathologist. The pathologist believed that 4 to 12 hours prior to Corey's death, he sustained blunt impact injuries to the chest and abdomen with laceration of the heart, left pulmonary contusion, and laceration and contusion of the liver. On March 3, 2022, Corey's manner of death was ruled homicide. On March 9, Christopher Gregor was arrested again, and additionally,
yeah, this also gives a good timeline for people that are trying to keep up with this. I know some folks are watching the trial intently. I have people texting me all day about, did you see that witness? And I can't watch everything all day, so it's really hard to keep up with that. So this definitely, gives a good timeline and exactly what's happening. Now, I do have a clip. I don't know how long we'll get into it, but if we do at the end, the doctor that diagnosed him does get up on the stand and talk about the COD and, in doctor's terms. So I did notice that. And there's been a lot of people testifying. So I really hope we get justice and this guy doesn't walk free. Have you seen any of it at all?
Yeah.
Have you watched any of the trial?
Yes, I've been watching a bunch of it. It's very
Cool.
interesting, and I've watched part I did watch this morning was of the dad, this guy's dad, and they seem like they wanted to be good grandparents. They seem like they were good parents to him. I don't know what his deal is, and I wonder too. He's into working out and all that stuff. Do you think he's on any like steroids? Maybe he would have had roid rage or something during these couple incidents or something.
I actually do. And I wonder if that's going to come out at all in trial or if they even, if that's even a factor for them in this. But he actually does look like he's kind of a big guy and he works out a lot, with the heavy weights. So nowadays, many people take some form of steroids, even if it's a pill or, testosterone booster. So that could have been a factor along with, him being mad at the mom and, other things that we talked about. But that's a good call. I wonder if that will come out or somebody will say anything about that.
Yeah, that'd be
at the trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone's saying here that the trial so discombobulated with the schedule issues with witnesses. And I wish the prosecutor had it together better. Yeah, I hope that doesn't determine the outcome. And this makes it easier when we do an episode like this to get things, straightened out for everybody. So because when you're watching a trial, it's all over the place and it's hard to keep track. So
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for hosting this, JT. That's awesome.
Thanks for joining me.
All right. Yeah, no problem. Anytime. All right, let's get through this.
Additionally charged with first-degree murder. The state claimed that he knowingly caused serious bodily injury, resulting in the death of another. This time, Christopher was held without bail. The state put together their theory of the crime. It was fairly straightforward. They believed that Christopher severely beat Corey during the time he was alone with him on April 2, 2021. On April 30, 2024, over 3 years after Corey's death, Christopher's trial started. At the time I'm making this video, the trial has been going on for 3 days. Now moving to my analysis. Christopher Gregor maintains his innocence. His defense attorney argued that the treadmill incident is completely separate from Corey's death. Corey died as a result of sepsis caused by pneumonia, and it had nothing to do with Christopher's behavior. The state, of course, disagrees. They believe it is exceedingly clear that Christopher murdered his son. This brings me to the question, is Christopher guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. On April 2, 2021, Christopher took Corey to a hospital where Corey died. No one else was with Corey in the hours leading up to his death. An expert for the state said that Corey died from blunt impact injuries. Christopher left the hospital and drove to Tennessee rather than waiting. About 2 weeks before Corey died, surveillance video captured Christopher mistreating Corey in the treadmill incident. Corey told a medical provider that his father forced him to run on the treadmill because he was too fat. The police said they could smell cleaned or dried vomit in Corey's bedroom.
Yeah. See, that may be where that came from. Him telling the police that the dad was telling him he was too fat, right? Directly from the little boy. That's interesting that they actually had a statement like that from him, before he died.
Yeah, I think that was at the doctor checkup he went to, because the nurse who checked him, she was also at the trial. I was watching that as well. That was very interesting. She said he passed all he had the marks, but he passed all the checks as far as, like his eyes weren't going backwards or nothing. His temperature was right. His blood pressure was right. Like, it's very odd.
Yeah. And what sucks about this whole thing is that it could be a possibility that, the jury sees it in the way that it may not be connected to what happened, a week before. So that's too bad. But, he ran, and that's the fact that he just took off shows some guilt, but may not be enough to get him convicted. And I don't know exactly at this moment if somebody in chat knows what they're charging him with, like if there's a lesser one. And do you know right now offhand, JT?
I'm not sure, but I know they're trying to say that it was pneumonia that killed the kid. And right. I am aware. I know there are poisons out there that you can give somebody to make it look like they died from pneumonia. So
that's a good call too. That's been happening.
Because then I was thinking, I'm like, well, if earlier in the day he passed all his health things, and then, a couple hours later he's not that well with dad, did dad give him something?
Right. That's enough. Yeah. That's late.
Healthy in the morning and then dead by night.
That, or there could have been another beating in between that we don't know about. We're lucky that we got that footage that we did. Not that we want to see it, but had they not found that footage, that we might not even have a trial right now, because he did pass those doctor tests, which is interesting with all the bruises and him telling the doctor, my dad makes me run because he says I'm fat. I'm surprised they didn't dig deeper, but doctors, people are busy, teachers are busy. Maybe they just didn't see it that way that one time. Unfortunate circumstance. That's too bad. Okay, KJ says child endangerment. Yeah, there could be like anywhere from child endangerment to first degree. I don't know exactly, but we'll figure it out as we go. All right. You're controlling the the people. So if you want to stop at any time, you can tell me that too, and I'll stop it.
Christopher's apartment. On April 3, the day after Corey died, Brianna sent him a text message at 6:02 p.m. saying that the police were looking for him. At 6:09 p.m., Christopher used his phone to search the internet for the term, "Can your phone be tracked in airplane mode?" A minute later, he searched, "Can my car be tracked?" and "Will red marks turn into bruises?" Christopher then sent a text message to his parents saying he would not be back for a while and asked if they would take care of his dog. On April 4 at 9:58 p.m., Christopher searched, quote, "There was a murder determined from an autopsy. How long to file charges?" unquote. At 10:21 a.m., he searched, quote, "How long after an autopsy to file charges?" unquote. At 12:17 p.m., Christopher sent a message to a woman on Tinder saying that he was going to see his brother in Los Angeles. In reality, Christopher was in Tennessee. He stayed there for one night before heading back to New Jersey. Brianna claimed that she reported many...
Well, I wonder why he even came back. Like, he left and came back, and wonder what prompted him to do that. And that's interesting, KJ. You say child endangerment is the charge? That's not a very big charge. I mean, I don't know. Child endangerment is a charge. The treadmill cause is the death. Cause of death is homicide. Okay, so it's anywhere from child endangerment to what? There are two charges. Okay. All right. It's just not very clear. I'll have to look it up. I'll do that while this is playing. I'm interested in what the jury has, what options they have in this.
Instances of mistreatment perpetrated by Christopher against Corey, but no one listened to her. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Christopher's defense indicated that experts would testify that Corey died from sepsis caused by pneumonia. As far as the other injuries observed on Corey, life-saving techniques used by medical providers could have been the cause. Even though the treadmill incident looks bad for Christopher, it seems clear that the injuries sustained during that incident did not lead to Corey's death. Corey was evaluated by medical providers after that incident. Based on the timeline, it is possible that the fatal injuries Corey sustained occurred before he was dropped off to Christopher. Corey was in a hospital being evaluated until 1 a.m. on April 2. He was with his mother at this time. She dropped him off to Christopher just after 9 a.m. Christopher brought Corey to a different hospital where Corey died just after 5 p.m. According to a forensic pathologist, the injuries that killed Corey occurred 4 to 12 hours prior to his death. This means that Corey was attacked sometime between 5 a.m. and 1 p.m. During the first 4 hours of that time range, Corey was with Brianna. Christopher's defense argued that when Brianna took her son to the hospital, she was told that he might have sepsis as a result of complications from pneumonia. Brianna chose to take him out of the facility against medical advice and took him to Christopher. If she was so worried about Christopher harming Corey, why did she do that? On the stand, Brianna admitted that she regularly used methamphetamine years earlier.
Well, that is weird that she did that. And it's weird that Dr. Grande said that if she was so worried, why did she do that? That's interesting. But they're also trying to put it on the mother and blame her. So that makes sense. I just wonder why he said that. Now, I looked it up real quick, and we'll get back to this. It says Christopher Gregor is facing serious charges. Here are the details. So, first-degree murder is probably the highest one that he can get. He's being charged with first-degree murder, and they're accusing him of beating him to death. Yeah, so I don't know if there's lesser charges if they have first-degree murder, and then it also says charges of endangering the welfare of a child. So I guess it could be something in between. You can go anywhere from 5 years to whatever, 25 years.
Wow.
Man, I hope we get justice, JT.
We need justice for Corey.
We do. Absolutely. And yes, everybody, you guys are all on the crime scene channel. I can't put up I can't put up the messages because this is his channel. He's putting them up right now. So don't get mad at me if I don't put your message up, Melissa.
Doing my best. I'm trying to get...
You're doing a great job. No, it's your channel. It's just some people are used to me putting their stuff up all the time, and then they don't, and I don't. So this is his channel. It's new, and it's going to get even bigger.
Just before Corey died on April 2, Brianna texted her boyfriend and asked him to get her methamphetamine. She admitted that after Corey died, she threw bones, eggs, rocks, and dead fish at the house where Christopher's parents lived. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that Christopher Gregor is guilty of murder? Yes, I believe he is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. When considering the treadmill incident, it's reasonable to believe that Christopher regularly mistreated Corey. The alleged fatal violence perpetrated on April 2 was probably just another attack
Right.
in a long series. Christopher may not have intended to kill Corey, but he knew his actions could lead to death. There is no way to be sure about what a jury might do, but I would be surprised if Christopher was acquitted. When speaking about the Treadmill incident, his defense attorney told the jury, "You're not going to like him." At least on this point, the attorney's assessment is accurate. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Christopher Gregor is immature, impulsive, irresponsible, aggressive, vindictive, and sadistic. There are many reasons that Christopher allegedly mistreated Corey. For example, he wanted to teach Brianna a lesson. He was angry with her. It was his way of getting revenge on her. Or it's possible that Corey was a constant reminder of Brianna. Christopher saw Brianna in Corey, like he realized that Corey had some of her traits. This made Christopher upset. He wanted to eradicate those traits from Corey. After allegedly murdering Corey, Christopher fled because he knew he was guilty. He searched for the term, "there was a murder determined from an autopsy, how long to file charges," because he knew that he had committed murder.
Wow.
After Christopher was arrested, he was offered.
Yeah, and all of that is right. None of that's solid. None of that's going to stick, and he can be acquitted. But thank you, Eat the Cupcake, for saying they must be adding the flight charge because at the end of court today, they argued for 30 minutes about this charge and consciousness of guilt. So that's awesome to know for people that are watching the trial, all the details. That's what we try to bring, right? Yeah. We're trying to help people along that can't watch this all day long and stream all day long. We appreciate those that do, but we certainly can't. Now, justice for Harmony Montgomery. Did you see the Adam Montgomery sentencing today?
I did. They should have just said like death by, firing squad or lethal injection or something. That would have made me a lot happier. But as it doesn't look like he's going to be getting out anytime soon. So
he was an asshole, though, man. That he was
very
from the start. I shouldn't be surprised. But you think
he looks at the camera and everybody, and he says, I'm
nope."
not guilty.
He tells the judge, "Nope." I'm like, man, you think he'd be a little more respectful in the sentencing of his beautiful daughter's, of her demise. That he did admit to moving her body. So at the very least, he admitted to some of it, and he still just acted like an awful human being. So justice, some sort of justice, and Kayla Montgomery is going to have a hard time in the world, and I hope karma gets her. That's all I have to say about that. I know we're on a different case, but we're talking about children, and Harmony was a beautiful child, and I think they're maybe close in age. It seems so.
Yeah, about 5, 6, just
5, 6. Yeah.
She's another child that did not deserve to be treated the way she was treated. So I'm all for using my channel as a platform to be a voice for these kids. Because they deserve better.
Absolutely. And that happened today. Like everybody texted me and emailed me and just blew up my phone. I said, I'm going to watch it. I was working. So I'll do an episode on it tomorrow, folks, and we can talk it through. But anyway, let's get back. We need justice for Corey and Corey Micciolo, and may Harmony rest in peace.
A plea bargain. The terms indicated that he would plead guilty to both the murder and the endangering charge in exchange for 30 years in prison. Normally, in New Jersey, a prisoner must serve 85% of their sentence, but the terms of this plea bargain indicated that Christopher would serve the entire 30-year term. There was no way to get released before 30 years. This meant that instead of being eligible for parole at the age of 57, which factors in the 85% rule, he would have been in prison until the age of 62. One can appreciate why Christopher would not be excited to spend 30 years in prison, and worse yet, 30 years in New Jersey. But the plea bargain Christopher was offered was actually a good deal. The minimum sentence he is facing if convicted of murder is 30 years in prison. The maximum is life in prison. In addition, the expected sentence for the endangerment charge is between 5 and 10 years. Rejecting the plea deal just doesn't make any sense at all, and supports the theory that Christopher is living in a fantasy world where he can avoid all responsibility for his behavior. Now moving to my final thoughts. As I mentioned, Brianna said that she alerted the authorities many times about Christopher's bad behavior, but no one listened to her. It's possible that she was ignored because of her history of substance use, or simply because she was involved in a custody dispute. It is not unusual for individuals in these types of disputes to lie about each other. The lesson learned in this case is how it's important for the authorities to investigate all allegations, even those made by people who may have an ulterior motive. One thing about this case is certain. The circumstances conspired in such a way that Corey did not have any chance of remaining safe. The treadmill incident is a metaphor for his impossible situation. No matter how fast he tried to run, There was no way to escape. Those are my thoughts in the case of Christopher Gregor. Please put any opinion.
Thank you, Dr. Grande. Everybody go to his channel and subscribe, like this man. We do. I always loved his reasonable.
I love the way
thought.
he ended that. Yeah, no matter how fast he tried to run, he couldn't escape. And that is just so sad. And he, in the video before he falls a bunch of times, he runs for a while at a pretty good fast speed. It's not as quick as later on in the video, but he runs for a while at a pretty quick pace for especially for his age. And I think God bless Corey. He tried.
Well, and it was on an incline too, man. You
Yeah.
know, that'd be tough for either one of us to even do that. So that's just, yeah. Anyway, you're up. What do you think? Your thoughts? What do you got going? Yeah, I mean, that was just, I wanted to kind of bring a little bit of like calmness and a little bit of, a doctor's perspective and not so harsh to everybody that can't handle that. And I appreciate those that say they say that they can't and they know how to manage that, because sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And he did a great job. What's his channel again? Just to shout him out.
It's Dr. Grande. If you
Dr.
just look
Grande.
up,
Okay, nice.
yeah, Dr. Grande, just like it sounds.
Yeah, I like that. Dr. Grande, and go check out his channel because I just love the way he did that.
Yeah, it's different than like Dr. G explains or some of the behavior panelists. All of them have such good and different perspectives and different calmnesses and things to bring to the case. So
Absolutely.
I love it. What's up, Davy Jones? All right, go for it. Thank you, Carly, for putting Dr. G's channel in there too. Dr. G explains. All right.
Here we go. Dr. Grande, Dr. G's. Okay, just give me 1 second here.
You're good. Thank you, Miracle Hearts, earlier for explaining that the mom took Corey from one hospital to another. He kind of made it sound like she took him out and then like he passed away because she took him out, which wasn't accurate.
Well, someone said in the comments that maybe he got hit or something for telling the doctors about the treadmill incident, and maybe he did something to him after he got his hands on him after hearing about that, and then that's what caused whatever he did that day. I don't know, but I saw that in the comments, and I wanted to bring that up. That seemed like a good theory.
Well, it's a good possibility because I mean he did take him to the doctors after, and it was a week later, and who knows what happened in between. But I mean, it's enough to get him on trial. We'll see if he gets convicted.
Absolutely.
All right, here we go, folks.
Let's
Trigger warning.
Yep, let's see what Nancy's got to say. I'm sure she's going to dish out all the tea here.
Corey was in Chris's arms. His arms were over Chris's shoulders. His legs were dangling. His arms did not look like they had much movement to them. His legs did not look like they had much movement to him. His head was rested on Chris's shoulder. His head was his face was difficult to visualize. So when I first approached them, I knew that something was concerning, but I couldn't see everything I needed to see. So I was depending on Chris to convey a sense of urgency or unwellness that I did not get from him at first. It was more of a clinical description.
You are hearing William Doyle, a nurse practitioner at Southern Ocean Urgent Care. And when you hear a professional speak, the way it just doesn't even make sense. He says his face was difficult to visualize. Can I see the video again? I think what he meant to say is the little boy was near death and he couldn't even hold his head up. That's why his face is difficult to visualize. And as a nurse practitioner says, Chris, I believe he is referring to the bio dad, Christopher Gregor, the deadbeat dad that didn't seem upset and wouldn't really articulate what had happened. Gee, I wonder why. In the last hour,
Jay, do you think he should have called the 911 instead of taking him in?
Yeah, I do. In that
Hold that
circumstance, I
against him
mean,
for not like being more urgent about.
I mean, I definitely do, but I think he wasn't more urgent because it happened often with probably the beatings. We saw all the bruises and stuff. And number one, he probably didn't want to call 911 because he thought, oh, he'll be fine. It's, another one of those. And he probably thought about the bill too. If he was in it for some of the money, it's really expensive to call 911. So
It sure is.
he, just didn't want to be responsible for it. And when he realized, I mean, he saw it enough to take him in. He saw that he was getting lethargic and who knows what his eyes look like. Yeah, a lot of parents would call 911 right away.
Right away. Let's keep watching.
Yeah.
Hours in court. The chilling texts are revealed, and this tastes like dirt in my mouth, where the father writes, quote, he needs to toughen up. Talking about the 6-year-old little boy, he sends this after making his son, Corey, run the treadmill. He dies. He, quote, needs to toughen up. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. I know evidence is sometimes very hard to look at, but a jury is being asked to render a true verdict. Guys, take a listen to Sydney Sumner, Crime Online.
Brianna Micciolo is supposed to drop Corey off to his father. Gregor asks her to bring Corey to the fitness center of his apartment complex. Surveillance video inside the gym shows Corey running on a treadmill while Gregor turns up the speed and incline of the machine until the 6-year-old can't keep up and falls off. Gregor lifts the boy off the ground by his shirt, holding Corey over the running treadmill. Corey's feet slide out from under him several times as he tries to get his footing, and Gregor appears to bite Corey on the back of the head. Corey eventually starts running again and falls from the treadmill 5 more times. Through tears, Corey tells the doctor about the treadmill incident and says Gregor forced him to run because he was too fat. The doctor notes 14 bruises or scrapes on Corey's body, but the rest of his tests come back normal. Micciolo's request for emergency custody is denied, and she returns Corey to Gregor the next morning.
When I hear the reporter describing all the bruises on Corey's little body, and I watch Corey so valiantly trying to keep running every time his father throws him back on the treadmill, even holding him down, and you can see him forcefully biting him. But this is what the defense attorney has to say. You got to hear this. Listen.
You're going to see Christopher.
Yeah, Jay?
No, I'm saying I'm glad we're getting to hear this. I appreciate this content, and thank you for bringing me here today because I really want to see the highlights of the case, and I can't even imagine what he has to say. So I'm interested in it a lot. How do you defend that?
Yeah, how do you, especially the biting? I mean, all of it, the whole thing. If you want to say, well, I was just trying to toughen them up. Okay, well, then what about the biting? You don't chew on your kids to.
Yeah, what was that? I mean, why did he freaking bite his head, first of all? Second of all, what was that? I mean, he fell 4 or 5 times and he just watched him and then get back up. What was the point in that? Why not just stop the treadmill and let him get on? And then I just.
Yeah, you slow it down, you stop it and then slowly start it back up. A normal parent. You don't say, well, you get up and get back on there. So it's just terrible.
Yeah, it sounds like Elijah Vu, Be a Man, right?
Yep.
Another one of those.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Terrible.
yeah, let's see how this man could actually defend him and sleep at night.
Go over to that treadmill and speed it up. And you're going to see Corey fall. And you're going to see him pick that boy up 6 times. And 6 times put him back on the treadmill. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to like him. And I don't care.
Nope.
When you see that video, you're going to be horrified. You're going to be mortified. But I'm telling you right now that the evidence you're going to see of Corey's death had absolutely nothing to do with that treadmill.
Well, I can tell you, I did see the video, and I for sure don't like the guy. So he was right about that. But I don't think he's right about the treadmill not playing a part in it.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, we saw him a few times hitting his upper area, torso area, and who knows, all of that area. Any little puncture wound on a child of that age can cause death.
And this is just
Absolutely.
what's on camera. Like, what else was happening?
Exactly. We're lucky, even though a lot of people don't want to see this. We're really, truly lucky. And, sometimes children, when things like that happen, they solve their own murders by this happening. So thank God that we did get to see that, even though it's harsh.
Yeah.
With me, an all-star panel, including Jim Murdoch from News 12 New Jersey reporter. And if you want more on the trial, go to News 12 New Jersey, News 12 New York. Jim, hold on just a moment. Dr. Bethany Marshall, you got to get my head straight. Dr. Bethany Marshall, renowned psychoanalyst, is joining us at drbethanymarshall.com. Dr. Bethany, did you hear what the defense attorney just said? What, am I supposed to believe him or my lying eyes? You saw the video, Bethany, right?
Nancy, these are two
How the
men of
hey
using
is he
power.
saying, oh, look over here, not over here at the video. Don't look at the autopsy report. Look at me, what I'm saying in court. What does he think? They just fell off the turnip truck and the jury is
Exactly.
stupid?
Nancy, he's manipulating the jurors. Also, now we have two men abusing power. Deadbeat dad abused power by using his child as a punching bag. Never mind, he was also only involved with the child in the last year of his life, wanting to gain control over the child in order to abuse him. Isn't it interesting that he has sought an attorney who does the same? In some ways, I think the attorney is like deadbeat dad, trying to control the jurors, trying to have power over them. To me, it's like male power on parade, and it's just very sickening.
Right.
Speaking of male power on the parade, I'd like to welcome everyone on our panel, including a lot of males, Dr. Bethany. So you want to maybe back off on the male power on parade thing until the very end when they can't leave. Okay, Jim Murdoch joining me, News 12 investigative reporter out of New Jersey. Jim, thank you for being with us. What is happening in the courtroom? How is the jury reacting? I mean, how can the defense attorney with a straight face say the dad had nothing to do with it?
So thanks for having me on, Nancy. I think one of
Her
the important
face.
factors here, before they showed that treadmill video in court, they played the video before the dad kept putting him up and down in the treadmill. So in that courtroom, a video played for 12 minutes showing that little boy running at full speed while the dad in the background was lifting weights and once in a while periodically checking in on him. So I think this has been missed in a lot of the reports we've seen online, but that child had been running for 12 full minutes before the dad sped it up. And the video looked like he was running at full speed for a child of 6 years old. So you go in the courtroom, we're sitting there in the front row and we're watching in complete silence along with the, at that time, there were 16 jurors seated for 12 minutes. And then the video played.
12 minutes that poor kid was running. And at a pretty good speed too, before dad decided, well, let's turbo boost this and knock it up a couple notches and make him
and go up, right? And the incline alone, man, that burns. Whenever go back to the gym, when I do, I'll start and I'll stop, and man, that burns, especially when you're going up and going that fast. So for a grown adult, that's rough. So that was good backstory. No, 12 minutes. So no wonder his legs were buckling under him and he wasn't able to get up, because his dad was just, I believe he was just torturing him at that point. He's he's a narcissist.
He was tapped out, but he wanted to see him punished, I guess.
Yeah, just because he didn't like the mom and the situation. I don't think he wanted him, but since he had him, he was just going to do what he wanted with him, Oh, painful.
Showing the dad what you're showing right now. So you have to go back 12 minutes. This child had been running at full speed before the speed and the incline were increased, Nancy.
Okay, let me see Jim Murdoch, please. Jim Murdoch, guys, joining me on the story from the beginning. And again, let me correct myself. This is not a story. This is a real case. People are suffering. And every time I look at that little boy, Corey, running and falling, face planting and falling and literally thrown back on there, Jim Murdoch, I think of my little boy, John David, and my little girl, Lucy, and I imagine their head on that little body running and falling. And I can hardly stand it. But I got to ask you about something, Jim Murdoch. Are you telling me that in court there were 12 minutes of silence?
Of silence while we were watching that little boy run before the dad sped up the treadmill. 12 minutes of silence broken up when they switched to that video, and then there were audible gasps from quite a few people in that courtroom. But 12 minutes of silence watching that boy run.
Just pause it for a second. I like here with what Gothic Breenex said. Look at how when Corey fell, he knew to step on the sides of the treadmill to get back on, and then to get ready to step in the center. This couldn't have been the first time the kid was forced to do this. I completely agree with that. That's a shame.
Absolutely.
that makes me sad. Just that little detail right there, like it
And you
just
know the detectives had to go through a lot of footage, so I'm sure there was plenty other times that they saw this happen, but they didn't want to bring it into court because then the defense will say, well, look at how many other times he took him and nothing happened, you know?
yeah,
So I feel bad for the detectives and everybody that has to watch this, even the man that testifies today, or maybe it was yesterday, that reveals the cause of death. That's got to be rough for these people.
absolutely.
So, yeah, good call. And you could just call her Bree.
Free, okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Jarrett Fiorentino joining me, homicide prosecutor. Jarrett, I remember on several occasions, I would use the time it took, for instance, to asphyxiate someone, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I'll have to go to Dr. Eric Eason on that in court. For instance, hold the pillow down in front of a jury and push it down and have complete silence for 3 minutes. It's so powerful because the jury then understands how long the father had to have saved his son all of this suffering, or how long the defendant took to perform the act. What Jim Murdoch just told us is, I mean, drop the mic right there, Fiorentino.
It's so there's something about this video, Nancy, that gets harder to watch every time you watch it, because you watch this little boy trying to get up. He's trying to please his father, is what he's trying to do, and to probably stop the abuse that he's getting. But like you said, the length of time is so telling. Every second of those 12 minutes, his father could have stopped this. And in my opinion, he's charged with first-degree murder right now. Every second he didn't stop
There
it
it
was
is.
another second that shows this is the attitude that this father has toward his son: reckless disregard, in fact, an intentional act to commit murder.
And guys, wait till you see the text exchanges between the mom, the bio mom, and the bio dad. But I'm going to start calling him the deadbeat dad because he had nothing to do with his son for years, had to have a paternity suit. I mean, really? Can't the dad just say, okay, yeah, I had sex with her. It's possible. He would not pay any money for this child because he swore he wasn't the dad. And then he finally gets to see the child, and then the child is abused. But I want you to hear about what happened when he takes the baby to the hospital. Listen.
The day after Corey's examination by a pediatrician, Christopher Gregor tells Brianna Micciolo that Corey is feeling bad. The 6-year-old is sleepy and nauseous. Gregor puts Corey down for a nap, and when he wakes up, Corey is stumbling, slurring his words, and is having trouble breathing. Gregor takes the boy to Southern Ocean Medical Center, where he's quickly admitted and intubated. Doctors take Corey for a CT scan. During the scan, Corey starts seizing and losing his pulse. Medical staff administer life-saving efforts, but cannot revive Corey.
The initial autopsy reveals that Corey died as a result of blunt force injuries with cardiac and liver contusions, along with inflammation and sepsis. The Ocean County Medical Examiner lists the manner of death as undetermined. A forensic pathologist performs a second autopsy, confirming the blunt force trauma and injuries to Corey's liver and heart. Corey was chronically abused and suffered an acute traumatic injury to his heart 4 to 12 hours before his death. Corey's death is reclassified as a homicide.
Good.
So let me understand, Jim Murdoch, the defense attorney.
Yeah, that's. I mean, what a shame.
That's a big shame. I am glad they reclassified it, though, because sometimes cases like this will happen and you'll hear about this and then, it doesn't get reclassified because something that happens in between the system that we don't know about. And then people just talk about it forever and nothing ever happens. So thank God they reclassified it, man.
Yeah, and it looks like he passes away not too long after this video here, actually.
Yeah, and then the dad runs. He knew.
Yeah. Yeah, what a shame.
He knew. Yeah.
It's on the basis of power to everyone around him. And, when I think of child abuse, there's sort of two types in terms of the profile of the abuser. One is the parent who's overwhelmed, who thinks the child is bad, who doesn't know where the child is developmentally, so they explode, they hurt the child, but then they're remorseful afterwards. This is a very, very different animal, Nancy. This is a man who is a sadist, who's mean. He gained control of the child in the child's 5th year. He wasn't even bonded with the child up until that point. He didn't even care about the child. So he got the child from the mother so he could control, dominate, and abuse. This is the kind of abuser who pumps himself up by finding something small around him so that he can just use that small little thing as a punching bag. And these jurors are traumatized. That's why they gasped and then they were silent. When you read the definition of PTSD, it's not just being abused, it's watching abuse.
To Jim Murdoch, I'm always shocked when deadbeat dads suddenly have a newfound interest in being with their child. Isn't that what happened here?
It certainly seems that way with the paternity test coming in, and then Christopher comes into his life when he's 4 years old, automatically gets full custody with visitation granted to Bree Micciolo on this case, and that was talked about at length in the first day of testimony, the events going back and forth with that. I also want to get back to some of the emotions that we saw. We talk about Chris sitting in that courtroom. At the very beginning, when the prosecution began to lay out their opening statement, Chris showed emotion. He cried, and then he did not. And I've been watching the way he handles everything. He's just sitting there once in a while, leaning over to his attorney Mario to speak with them. But when the jury's gasping, when we're watching that 12-minute silent video before he falls, Christopher's just sitting there in the courtroom and really not showing a lot of emotion outside of what we saw when the prosecutors laid out the first minutes of their opening statements. It's fascinating to watch, And then when
the most emotion I've seen him show so far, the dad, was when his father was on the stand talking about Corey. He started tearing up when his dad was talking, and one of the guards there walked over and handed him a Kleenex box. I was like, oh, he's just fine.
Oh, yeah. I imagine that. I imagine he probably did have sympathy, empathy for his dad, but not for that child whatsoever. I don't think he ever bonded with him at all. I think he had disdain for him, and he wished that that would have never happened between the two, that he never got her pregnant, but he didn't want to pay child support. So,
yep, another terrible father or father figure, I guess you could say, terrible father. And then it's another mom that just isn't clean, and like kind of like his mom, and it's like, what do you? If you were just clean and off the drugs, like, he wouldn't have had a chance to get full custody,
Right. I agree. The only thing I do say about that is that she at least tried to right her wrongs, and she was a 17-year-old girl that got pregnant, which is really hard. She probably didn't have a lot of support, and this guy just, didn't claim the kid and whatever. But yeah, absolutely, ladies. Especially if you're going to have children, if you're on a substance and you're doing something and you get pregnant, take care of that baby first, or give it to a family member, give him or her to a family member, do something, but try to get clean, because this is the stuff that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And of course, she's kind of on trial.
Right. Yeah. Her being clean doesn't just affect her; it affects his life too, in the best way. So that's why, as parents, we just be the best version of ourselves as we can be for our kids. So, all right, let's get back to this quick.
Right.
When Bree Micciolo took the stand on the opening day, immediately her emotions, quite a few times got the best of her. So very different emotional responses watching the defendant in the court and Bree, Corey's mother, in there. And those are very notable that I picked up watching from the opening few hours of this case.
It's not just this day that Corey was forced to run on the treadmill, sustaining blows to his heart and other internal organs. Damning text chains have emerged in court. Listen.
Brianna Micciolo posts a text exchange 2 weeks before Corey dies. Micciolo writes, Corey came upstairs upset and almost crying because he was trying to ask you about playing football in high school, and you smacked the ball out of his hands and walked out. Gregor replies that I smacked the ball out of his hands and he didn't say a word to me. Gregor then texts that if hitting the ball out of the 6-year-old's hands makes him cry, that maybe he needs to be a little tougher because that's soft tissue. After Gregor makes another comment about Corey being over-emotional, Brianna Micciolo responds, he's not over-emotional. You hurt his feelings. He got upset. He's 6 years old.
So he smacks the football out of his son's hand. Like, that seems like such a childish thing to do. Like, walk up, someone's holding something and you just smack it out of their hands. Like, man, where's this guy's head at, man? And you do that to your son, and a 6-year-old too.
I don't even think that he thought of it as his son. I think he thought of it as some damn responsibility that he had to take care of now, or he's going to get a big fat, bill for whatever, some monthly bill that he's going to get. And if you look at that little boy, he does look a lot like his mom in the eyes.
He does.
He's got the same kind of upper eyes. And I bet when he saw that little boy, he thought of her and thought, man, I wish you would have never, I'm sure he probably thought about or told her, get an abortion or whatever happened with them.
I see the father in him too, though. So, like, how the dad could look at him and not see himself in there, that's pretty heartless.
Yeah, he just doesn't care. And then what he cares about at that point is just having power and control and just being, he's just an evil guy. Honestly, that's just evil, pure evilness to be able to do that to a kid. A beautiful little boy.
Absolutely.
I don't know why abusers blame everybody else when they behave badly and criminally. They claim other people are over emotional. In fact, Dr. Bethany Marshall joining us, high profile psychoanalyst out of LA, the mom, the bio mom, was made to look crazy because she had made 100 complaints to DFACS Department of Family and Children Services over 20 months
Wow.
to make her look crazy. And also, in addition to the text chain you just heard, I'm going to go to Jim Murdoch in just a second on this from News 12. And if you want more, go to News 12 New Jersey, News 12 New York. Dr. Bethany, in addition to what you just heard, I understand that earlier that the dad, the bio dad, the defendant, the killer dad suspect, deadbeat dad, claimed that Corey's face, wait for it, I hope you're sitting down, you may need to lay down, Bethany, that Corey's face got in the way of a football that dad threw, and it made his nose bleed and his lip bleed.
Nancy,
Man.
this killer dad is so crazy. You know, abuse, Nancy, always starts with rationalizations. His face got in the way. He's too fat. He needs to toughen up. Whenever I have abusers come into my office, they make the abuse sound so reasonable. You know, one guy once said to me, you know, I pulled my child out of school and I made him walk home to make his bed because he needs to be taught a lesson. So whenever you hear adults talking about children in these demeaning ways, you have to consider abuse. You have to consider reporting. In terms of the mother looking crazy, you know, we have a phrase in my field. It's called crazy making behavior. That's when somebody treats you in such a way that you begin to fall apart and you look like the crazy one. And he made her look so crazy that even DFACS didn't believe her. Not that I want to let them off the hook, but I think that's what happened. And this poor mother is just desperate to help her child, so much so that she has to document the abuse on a Facebook group. Nobody else would listen to her. And just one more quick thought, Nancy, his demeanor in court, my first thought was, this is probably the first time in deadbeat killer dad's life where he has not had the upper hand. He's not been in charge and he's not been in a position of power. He probably doesn't even know how to be, what to do, how to be in this courtroom other than, let's watch, pretty soon he's going to start glaring at the jurors because he's going to try to have power all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Jim Murdoch joining us, News 12 New Jersey. I want to hear from your perspective of seeing it unfold in court. How did the jury respond to those chilling text messages dad sends after forcing his son to run in on the treadmill? Quote, he needs to toughen up. And the other evidence about his son, 6 years old, face getting in the way of his football thrown at full force.
What a
I
dick.
at the little boy and hit a bam right in the face.
The two words in those text messages that caught my eye and seemed to catch some of the jurors were the expression soft tissue. You're describing your son as having soft tissue. And it's an expression you just are kind of surprised to hear a dad talking about a bruise.
Oh, look at the eye there.
Yeah, I wonder if that was the one from the football. We were asking the other day, people were asking, how that happens and whatnot, because I don't see a bruise around his eye.
I've
Maybe
had that happen.
Have you?
My dog, I had a TV tray in front of me. My dog put his paws up on the tray and knocked the glass plate down, and a piece of glass flew from the ground into my eye. And it was basically, it's just a bruise, and the blood going there to heal the area. But I have had that. It's not cut. It is bruised, and it looks terrible. And
it does look terrible.
The eye does hurt.
Oh, I'm sure if you get a little piece of hair in your eye, sometimes that freaking hurts. But that's a good, I was wondering how that happened. So that's a good, like analogy to think maybe it was something like that. Maybe it was just the football that hit him, because I don't see a bruise around it. That's what I was thinking first. But now I'm thinking it may be something else. Maybe even poked him in the eye.
He's just learning how to catch, and even when they start learning how to catch, they're not the greatest at it. And this guy seems like the type of guy to like really whiz the football and like, here, let me throw a hot one to him. Like, dude, he's 6 years old. You like, if you think you got a hot one to throw, like, go play like football at the YMCA or something, like.
Right. And, the poor little guy, Corey, I bet you he was just pining for daddy's attention. And so he was like, oh, good, we get to play football together. We get to work out together. He wasn't probably thinking of it in that way at all. Like, dad's hurting. I mean, dad's trying to purposely hurt me. He was just wanting the attention because that's what kids want at that age. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Someone says that strangulation causes bloodshot eyes too. Yeah. Could be. We don't know what he was doing to him, man. There was a lot of documentation the mom was doing and giving them. So that's interesting that nothing happened with all of the 100 times that she called in. Wow.
Yeah, almost like the state failed them.
I think because she was a drug addict that they just either didn't take her seriously, or
Well,
maybe
she's
the
got
the
photos of everything. Like, how would you not
I,
take?
I yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. But I wonder if they totally just like discredited her because of that. But yeah, she has photos. Why didn't they catch that?
Amazing.
But using that term, and I think that, that the phrasing, perhaps the word choice made that phrase stand out, particularly to the people in that courtroom. And you're showing the pictures now. The dad described the boy soft tissue. It's rough. It's rough to hear. It's rough to hear.
Yeah.
On March 31st, Brianna Micciolo files an order to show cause seeking custody of her son Corey while DCPP investigates claims of abuse.
Scour all of the news reports, all of the evidence that we had to get the name of the judge that wouldn't take the boy away from the bio dad. Is that correct, Judge Patrick Bradshaw?
I think you have more information than I do on that judge. All I know is that when Bree took the stand and said how the judge, one day before that child died, she was denied full custody, you could see the helplessness. She was reliving that all over again on the stand.
Denied custody one day before he dies.
Yep.
A
That's
day.
terrible.
You ever hear that term? A day late and $1 short.
That's exactly what it was, man. She could have saved him, maybe. Or see, we don't know, and that's where it comes in. Was the treadmill video directly correlated with that? And even if it wasn't, the abuse was coming from the father. But yeah, one day too late, which it probably was already, because who knows if that was a correlation and internally that happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important to highlight and emphasize. Now, again, the defense, they tried to pull into Bree's past drug usage, saying she wasn't a fit mom to take care of that. And that was the defense's argument, perhaps during these.
Okay, wait. Let me understand something. Hold on, Jim Murdoch. You got me drinking out of the fire hydrant here. That's a lot of information, and I'm trying to digest it all. So typical victim blaming. The mom is a crime victim too. Her son's been murdered, according to prosecutors. So hey, what can we do? Let's blame her. Let's find something wrong with her. You know what? If you strung up everybody in this country that's ever had a drug or alcohol problem, there'd be nobody to go to work. Everybody would be strung up. Hold on just one moment. I want you to hear the actual COD and what happened when Corey was taken to the hospital. Listen.
The day
There
after
it
Corey's
is.
examination by a pediatrician, Christopher Gregor tells Brianna Micciolo that Corey is feeling bad. The 6-year-old is sleepy and nauseous. Gregor puts Corey down for a nap, and when he wakes up, Corey is stumbling, slurring his words, and is having trouble breathing. Gregor takes the boy to Southern Ocean Medical Center, where he's quickly admitted and intubated. Doctors take Corey for a CT scan. During the scan, Corey starts seizing and losing his pulse. Medical staff administer life-saving efforts, but cannot revive Corey.
Dr. Eric Eason joining me, renowned forensic pathologist and consultant. Dr. Eason, thank you for being with us. Could you, in regular vernacular, dummy down, doctor, okay? We're not all MDs like you. Could you explain what we just heard in regular people talk?
The autopsy report. So it described contusions, which are bruises. You normally see bruises on the outside of the body, but you can also see them internally. They were found on the heart and on the liver. And so what it indicates to me is that there was some type of blunt force trauma. So solid object struck the chest.
Do you think he was hitting him with something or punching him or both?
I think both for sure, but we saw when you look at the video, you can see that it's hitting him and all. Every time he falls, it hits him from here down, and so it's like direct, blunt force. And it could be from the treadmill, but it also could be from something else. And I think that's where they're trying to cause reasonable doubt.
Interesting.
Sucks. I had a friend of mine that his son passed away, and it was a total freak accident, because you never think this, right? He was out riding his bike, and he like jumped off the curb, and the handlebars twisted sideways and just hit him in the stomach. And they took him to the doctor. We've all fallen off of our bikes. The handlebar hit him in such a way, he passed away at the hospital that day, from internal bleeding. So you just don't know. But so it could have been that, or it could have been something else. But the chances are, with the speed that they were going, it could have been from that, and it could have been internally bleeding, and they just didn't catch it in time.
Yeah, interesting.
Also struck the abdomen, causing those bruises. And then the trauma was so rough that not only did it cause a bruise in the heart, but it also split a hole into the heart as well. So that's what we have here.
Put him up, please. Dr. Eric Eason, I didn't get that from the testimony. Maybe it was buried in there, because when doctors start testifying, no offense, of course, and they are speaking in technical hospital jargon, Did you say he had a hole in his heart? A hole was torn in his heart?
Laceration, yes, a tear.
Laceration, a laceration. His heart was lacerated. It wasn't just a bruising of the heart. The heart was actually lacerated. Are you sure?
That's right. That's what I got from the articles that we read.
So, Jim Murdoch, is this true? Was Corey's heart actually lacerated or torn?
And I'm going through my notes now. The injuries described, 12, 14 different bruises, including different bruises as seen by the first grade teacher, Kim Peace, I believe her name was, saw different bruises over that time between the treadmill. And keep in mind, folks, the treadmill incident happened March 20th. April 2nd, Corey was dead. So what we don't know, what happened before March 20th, what shape was the boy in prior to that treadmill, and what injuries were sustained during that treadmill and then following that treadmill incident up until April 2nd. It is the defense's argument from what they said in opening statements that the boy died of pneumonia and sepsis. But we've heard doctors say sepsis can happen from internally bruised, contused organs can also cause sepsis. I think that's
Interesting. So he might have actually died from sepsis, but that if he did, then it came from, internal bruising.
You see that right there? C. Bright says on day 5, sepsis was ruled out, 99% sure. So that's interesting. And of course, each side and every doctor that comes in is going to say something, they're going to have different opinions, but that's interesting. They ruled it out 99% that it didn't happen.
Absolutely.
Thank you, JT. I just want to send you a super sticker and say thank you. This is the crime scene JT's chat. So
thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I want people to know, and I want you to know
That
when
was for
people
your
said,
channel. I didn't. Thank you.
yeah, no, it's for you. We want to get those going for you.
Appreciate you. Yeah, that.
Back at you.
No sepsis, no infection.
Yeah, they're just trying to cause reasonable doubt here, and obviously make the jury go this way and that way, so that they could say, well, this wasn't correlated to that, and so maybe. But I think they're trying to push the narrative. I think the prosecutor's trying to push the narrative that it was chronic abuse. It didn't necessarily correlate to that particular situation, but that doesn't matter. He was still abusing him either way.
Yeah, like I've never seen that many photos of a child with that many different bruises and injuries and marks on them. That's wild. Let's
And yeah, one that they documented and nothing happened. And biting his head like that. Like, what was that? And how many times does he do that? Or did he do that?
Yeah,
Anyway.
put marks where you think you won't see them, like in the hair or something. Wow.
Right. I didn't even think about that. Damn.
Wow. That's going to be a major part of the second half of this trial once the defense has things in their court. And you're going to hear a lot of doctor jargon. One of the things we heard in the opening statements, 2 pathologists, 2 very different conclusions here.
Yep.
Jim Murdoch, I couldn't hear you. You got cut off. Did you tell me there is or is not a laceration to the heart?
They did mention heart bruising or internal organ bruising in the opening statements from when the prosecution attorney listed a whole bunch of different, like 12 or 14 different things that the child possibly died from. And internal heart was on there.
Welcome back, everybody. Straight back out to Jim Murdoch joining us from News 12 New Jersey, News 12 New York, where you can see this hour by hour what's happening in the courtroom. Jim, I believe you're correct because you are referring to the first autopsy. I'm talking about Dr. Andrews that then took another pass at it. Did he find the laceration to the heart, Jim?
That is where I believe it was put in documentation that a heart laceration was found. So what does that mean? So if the boy died of sepsis, can a heart laceration cause that sort of blood?
You know what, Jim? As much as I respect you, I don't think you've got an MD. Neither do I. No offense. Dr. Eason, dummy down again. What's a heart laceration? How do you get a heart laceration? From a severe beating, possibly?
Yes, it's evidence of blunt force trauma. All lacerations are due to blunt trauma, whether they happen on the skin or internally. And so the kid was struck in the chest with a lot of force. That's what's going to cause a tear in the heart.
Bill Daly is joining me, special guest, former FBI investigator, and now specialist in forensic photography and security expert. Bill, thank you for being with us. Bill, have you ever noticed when you bring in a suspect and you kind of got them red-handed, they start saying, look here, look there, it's their fault, not me, SOD, some other dude did it. Have you ever noticed that before?
No, absolutely. In fact, there are prisons filled with people who say the same thing. That's exactly what the MO is of individuals who are responsible for committing crimes and other heinous acts. You know, Nancy, if we look at this case, and I am kind of a fact-based person over my years, and just the facts that Joe Friday once said. If you look at this kind of timeline and litany of the images we've seen images not just the videos, which are certainly compelling and emotional, but also tell the story when Gregor has his son on the treadmill and brings him into the hospital. We have pictures the mother had taken of the injuries of her son Corey. But what two things stand out to me is one, we're not seeing all the other things that could have happened behind the scenes when they're not on video, when pictures are not taken. You know, and I also say, what happened? What happened to the system here, where all this stuff was so compelling, at least compelling to us as we watch it, that a judge didn't order for some protective custody to take place prior to the child dying? You know, and you know, finally, I'd like to kind of put on top.
That's what we were talking about. What happened to the system? The system failed this kid, especially if the mom was documenting all this stuff. It should have been a slam dunk case for her to get full custody and him to never get custody.
And the emergency filing with all of that documentation, I have no idea why they failed him so bad. And you know, when something like that happens, you can't. I mean, it's really hard to hold somebody accountable. I mean, look at the Maya case, with all the abuse at the hospital with Maya. They're probably never going to even pay her out for that happening. So going against doctors or going against all these people, most of the time nothing's going to happen, except you're going to lose a whole bunch of money in the process. And thank you, or is it Eat the Cupcake, for the super sticker. You see that there? That's for you, JT.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
Yes,
that. You guys are the best.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
It's not an easy thing Jay does hosting here, trying to run the comments and the videos, and you make it look easy, Jay.
Well, thank you. It's not for the faint of heart either. Believe me, all the the comments and the emails later.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Let's round this thing out here.
Top of this, Nancy, is the fact that, you know, my brothers in law enforcement, the people in the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office and investigators from the Ocean County law enforcement agencies have now stated, they've come out and said that Corey suffered life-damaging, life-ending injuries as a result of his time with his father, and that his father, Gregor, is responsible for his death.
You know, another thing, Bill Daly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim Murdoch, the initial judge said this video is not enough for an emergency order taking the boy away from dad. It's not enough. But then that same video was used to deny Gregor, the bio dad, bail. So for one judge, no way. For another judge, HELL, yes. So I guess it's in the eye of the beholder. So one judge saw this and saw the report of contusions and all of that and refused to take the boy away. Then the boy dies. And now that same video is used to justify no bail. That's bass backwards.
You know, Nancy, I think these images here, why, and the question is, why would someone see it differently than another? It's difficult to say. I think we all are seeing for what it is. And why someone would interpret it one way or the other, I don't understand. And unfortunately, as we know, is that was part of the system here that failed the poor child and led to his ultimately death.
To Jim Murdoch joining us from News 12, New Jersey, this is after her son is killed.
Correct.
And the mom, nobody would listen to her at all, 100 complaints. She, as Dr. Bethany pointed out, the only thing she could do, she posted on Facebook, basically, can somebody listen to me? So she goes by and throws some dead fish she got at the supermarket at their house. Now what, she's the bad person? I'm surprised that's all she did.
You got to look at the timeline of this. So for months and months after her son died, Christopher was only charged with child endangerment until the murder charges, until that second autopsy came out. So she forms a Facebook group, Justice for Corey. And this was brought up on the second day of testimony as well, trying to find posters in that privately run Facebook group, signs of aggression toward the Gregor family. It was brought up briefly. And then Mario, the attorney for Christopher Gregor, brought up a dead fish in court. It was objected. It was shut down. But the point was, in the court, this was all happening from a grieving mother's perspective.
Got it. You know, before we run out of time, I want to go to Jarrett Fiorentino, and correct me if my facts are wrong. Jarrett Fiorentino and Bill Daly, you've dealt with so many perps. When they go on the run flight, is evidence of guilt. And in this case, after Corey died, the dad is not sticking around. He hauls booty and hides out in a motel, I believe, in Tennessee. How does that look to you, Jarrett Fiorentino?
Yeah, that doesn't look suspect at all, does it?
No, and look at his smirk on his face that he's got there in that mugshot photo. I was also going to say, you know, I can see the different perspectives because the first episode of this, we watched the man come on and say that, oh, that's not such a bad thing he did. He was having his child man up. And I could see, as much as we want equality, there's still this a thing about a man, and there's a man's world, and men in their world want to be strong and they want to be tough, and there's this thing that it's never going to go away. I mean, men are strong, and they just got to use it the right way. And I can see where someone's perspective, maybe one judge was just thinking, well, maybe this man's just trying to toughen up this kid, So I can see the perspective. I do not agree with it. Never take out of context, folks. But we did see that in the first video where a guy was completely off base, in my opinion, about how he felt about it. And we get one juror like that or two. So
Yeah, it just all depends on how they see things. Maybe they grew up and their dads were kind of rough on them, making them run around and go to football practice and things. I know
military.
Years ago, like they used to use the belt on kids too. Again, like me and my wife, we promised that when hitting is not an option, so that's just something. But every generation is different, though, and
Exactly.
just from a different generation, then he's gonna rule in a certain way that you probably wouldn't expect or want to. It's tough.
Well, and they did say he was a football player, an ex-football player or something like that too. So we don't know how, yeah, right. We don't know how his dad, we don't know if they were from the military, even the judge. We don't know if the judge was from some military background where that's okay to do that. There's so many different justifications. And as much as that's why we want a voice, and that's why we're having that voice now, because we want things to change so that people don't say that a 6-year-old needs to man up because he's a boy.
Yeah, there's been too much of that lately. Elijah Vu, make him a man. 6-year-old, your soft tissue, like they're kids, and don't expect them to be, little Mr. T's, little Arnold and little Rambos, like when they're that young, like they're kids, and let them be kids. So, all right, we'll get
Yeah, I
back.
mean, I was real quickly. Letitia Stout, same way. She was like that with Gannon quite a bit.
Really?
And she'd make him go walk. They'd do these trails, and he would complain that my legs hurt. And she's like, "Stop complaining, grow up and be I don't know if she used the be a man, but it was like man up and stop complaining." So just because boys are boys, a man doesn't mean for them not to have feelings or complain or their legs hurt, people.
Right, and a
Let's
real
try
man
to
wouldn't even make a child do that.
yeah, let's try to change that perception. Everybody, the more people we have to go that way, it will get there.
Right.
All right, go ahead.
Because I say, when you don't know a horse, look at his track record. Deadbeat dad, covered in bruises, takes off to Tennessee and hides out.
It looks to me like consciousness of guilt, Nancy. And if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So a jury can be instructed. It's so critical in the law that when someone takes off, when they're in trouble, a jury is actually, as you know, instructed. Flight or running away is consciousness of guilt, and a jury can consider that. Think about any time people ever run away in their life. What are they running away from? Trouble. He ran away because he knew he was going to have to answer for the injuries that were all over Corey and everything that happened to Corey at that point. So it's flight, it's consciousness of guilt. It will be the final nail in a lot of nails in what undoubtedly will be the coffin of Mr. Gregor.
You know what, Jaron Ferrantino, I would like to agree with you, but do I have to say O.J. Simpson, Robert Blake, Michael Jackson? I don't know what this jury's going to do. Bill Daley, former FBI, flight. Instead of sticking around, Daddy takes off, flees the jurisdiction, and hides out in a Tennessee motel.
Right, exactly, Nancy. And I mean, in addition to the legal view of this, it's the emotional view, saying, where was he when, when people around him needed him, when the grieving mother maybe needed him, when he needed to be there to kind of, close this loop with his dead son, where was he at that time? And I think, as much as they're talking about, the mother and maybe some relatives throwing rocks and fish, at Gregor's parents' home, this goes far beyond that, in my view, is that he wasn't there for anyone. He wasn't there for to close that final chapter in his son's life by being there when his son is being waked or perhaps being buried. It just doesn't jive with me, and it goes to that whole issue of flight and his sense of responsibility.
This trial going on right now. We wait as justice unfolds, God willing, for 6-year-old Corey. Now we stop and remember American hero, police officer Michael Husak.
Yeah, I just want us to keep Corey in our thoughts, because
yeah, absolutely.
He just had no chance, and he just wanted to just make it. I could tell he just wanted to make his dad happy, and stop his abuse, and it didn't work out that way. He had a dad that I don't think there was any pleasing this guy until he actually saw the kid hurt.
Yeah, and I don't know that he was necessarily going for death, but that's where it was headed. And maybe he thought about it, maybe he didn't think about it, maybe he thought, well, if it happens, it's going to be accidental. No one's going to look at me, and hey, I don't have to deal with this anymore. We don't know what's going on in his head. He is the classic child abuser. I agree. It was consistent that he was doing that, and nobody was helping. The mom tried, and unfortunately her credibility wasn't there because she was a drug addict. She even said she was doing it while in the middle of going back and forth to the doctor, which takes a lot of credibility away from her, and that sucks because that really messed things up. I hope she learns from that.
Yeah, my thoughts and prayers go out to her, because I'm sure she's torn up from even putting this guy down on paperwork. She probably wishes she would have just moved on with her life, and kept him out of the picture.
Well, did you know? And I knew about it before, but I just saw it in the comments again. Allegedly, she was SA'd, and that's how she even got pregnant with little Corey. So it does make me wonder why she even had him on the birth certificate or the paperwork or any of that. It's interesting because he could have went to um her family, or even a foster home or something like that.
Yeah, and you got to really wonder, is the child support worth it if it kills the child? Putting him on the paperwork.
Yeah, well, even I mean, how she got pregnant from him is so interesting that she even acknowledged that he was the father. I wonder if her judgment was just because she was on drugs, that her judgment was highly impaired. Because I think most people wouldn't even want to say that when it happens that way, right? He forced himself on her, and that's how she got pregnant. Why would you even? Again, I don't want to slaughter the mom by any means, but she does have to take accountability for what she did, and I'm glad she's trying to redeem herself, and she does look like she genuinely cares.
Yeah, and she documented all those marks and everything. And can you imagine having to send the child back, knowing that every time he comes back, he ends up with more marks and more problems? Like, I would just get to a point where, and then if she dropped him off late, then he was ready to call the cops and say she kidnapped him. So, if you don't drop him off, that's his response. If you don't drop this poor kid off to be tortured at dad's house, he's gonna say you kidnapped him. Well, it's sick. I'm telling you, the whole thing just upsets the hell out of me. It pisses me off. 'Cause
Right.
this guy
And
trapped this kid, he trapped the mom, everything about it. He got what he wanted out of it, and a power trip.
absolutely. And I see a comment saying that the grandma had the mother had custody and wanted child support, her mother, so the grandmother. And you can't fault her for wanting support when uh, she might have been retired, she might not have been able to afford him, but I wish she didn't do that, and I'm sure she feels guilt for that, and she probably will the rest of her life. There's no way one thing could have stopped this. The only thing that could have stopped this is if someone would have saw those bruises and said, "Wait a minute, we need to pull him out of that home and put him anywhere else." So,
Yeah, and just like here in the comment, the overworked caseworkers. That's probably what's going on. They're overworked, and don't have the proper training, and then that adds up to a beautiful child that loses their life when there's a system that's supposed to prevent stuff like that.
yeah, and we've seen it too many times that it's definitely not doing its job, because this just keeps happening over and over and over. And somebody asked the other day, do we think that it's happening more, if it's happening more now, or is it just because we have social media and we know about it? But I think it's a combination,
Yeah.
and overpopulation. People just keep having kids and they're not taking care of them, and all kinds of factors. But I mean, this life and this world is hard. It's a lot different than my generation, even versus maybe your generation and the generation before that, with instant access to instant communication and social media. Everything goes so fast. It makes life a little bit harder. So I think things have changed quite a bit, and not in a good way.
No, it's tough to be a kid these days, and especially when you have parents like this guy that nothing you can do can please that parent, and it leads to an abusive relationship, and one like this that actually leads to death. It's a shame. I know a lot of people have abusive relationships with their parents, whether it's verbal abuse or physical abuse, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
just that's why we want to talk about this stuff too, to spread positivity, to spread awareness about it, so these things can start happening less, hopefully.
and people can see that just because you're going to get a little bit of money out of something, is it worth it? And are there other alternatives to doing so? So we want to raise awareness about that as well. I understand that they they wanted some child support, and that's why they introduced the kid 4 years in. But there probably could have been another way to go about it. And if this gives anybody a lesson, you know, let's try to find an alternative. Anything, you know, contact us. We could do a lot of things. There are a lot of alternatives. I know there's a lot of help out there that's better than letting your son go with some dude or some lady that they don't know.
Yeah, if anybody's in that type of situation, you've got to seek help from family members, friends. I mean, you've got to seek some help, because I feel like Elijah Vu's case too. Like his mom, she was getting overwhelmed, I suppose, from a drug habit and other things. But like there is help out there. There's places to go, and there's people like in this community, like you guys are watching, that would love to help somebody and prevent something like this happening. Prevent cases like Elijah Vu and Corey, and we don't need more. We need less of it. So we need to.
Yeah, and people are willing to help any way they can. I mean, if somebody came to me and like I don't know if Melissa's here, Johnson, she's in Maine, and she doesn't have housing, and somebody reached out to me right away and gave me a number for resources for her and her family, so nothing bad happens to her out there. That was amazing. Thank you, crime crew and the community, for, I mean, it was just instantaneously
That's so.
that connection was made. So I mean, you guys also, if you need money, we can set up a GoFundMe. We can put it out there, as long as we make sure it's legit, that it's something, because there's a lot of fraudulent stuff going on. But we are here to help and be a voice to help before something bad happens. So just think of it that way. There's alternatives other than bringing a parent in that doesn't even know the kid.
Yep. There really is. So, just think about your health and then your child's future, and that's the best we can do out here, right, Jay?
Right. I mean, that is. And then we can spread the word as the community grows. Hit that like button. You guys share it. The community grows. And then we're able to get people to reach out to us with resources and let us know to help you all. And that's what we can do here. I wish I had all the money in the world to give everybody, because I would, but but we can find resources, right?
Right. And we have another stream coming up tomorrow, right, Jay?
We do, and that one is going to be Sade Robinson. And we're going to talk about the next steps. There's a vigil coming up, and the dad wants to do a search for more body parts before the is it a vigil or a memorial? I'm sorry.
It's probably going to be a memorial, but I have.
Okay, yeah, a memorial. I'm sorry. I said that wrong. But yeah, he wants to do some more searches before then. So yeah, Sade Robinson tomorrow with JT and I. And before that, folks, everybody wants to watch again. If you want to watch it again, the sentencing of Adam Montgomery. It's so close to, this case and all the other ones. So I've been following that case. I want to talk with you guys about it, and let's do it. Let's do it tomorrow. So before that, and then right after, I'm going to hop on and we're going to do this Sade Robinson together. And hopefully hopefully somebody films the memorial. So then after we can come back and bring that as well and show people the memorial and spread some love for Sade, right?
Absolutely. And I'm going to be taking you guys with. I'm pretty sure, I think May 18th is when I'm going to be looking for Elijah Vu next. There's a event going on that day, a search event. So I'm going to be participating that day with my wife. And I appreciate you guys letting me host this one. Everybody on Jay's channel. Welcome to my channel, The Crime Scene here. I'm JT. I appreciate everybody who subscribed. I got about 30 subscribers, and I appreciate you guys. I've always wanted a little true crime channel, and and my friend Jay here is helping me bring it to life, and I appreciate you guys and you, Jay. So,
And I appreciate you as well. Thank you for, just thank you for everything you do. You're such a good guy, and I like you as a person, and I think that we can do big things together with you being able to be out there a little bit more than I can, and just spreading the word. You do have an outreach as well, and a compassion, and you have love for this. So I think it's gonna get a little bigger than you think, sir. Just telling you a secret.
that would be awesome. But it's a just I'd like my channel to be a platform for these people that had these unfortunate events. So but that's
Right.
what I've got here, and that was this episode here. We're gonna keep you guys when we get some more info on this. I'm sure we'll come back. Hopefully, I didn't annoy you guys. But
Now
yeah, this was fun, Jay.
it is, and I'll get you the outro. I'll get you the intro and outro, so when we're doing something together, we can have one at least, and then I'll see what I can do to get one, somebody to help you put one together, so you can have something cool. I really like your setup now. I love your background. That's awesome. It's like the world news and the colors you got going on. So you definitely have style. So let's make that style even better.
Thanks. Yeah, I put the cop lights down there for you. I was like, okay, Jay's gonna like this one.
Yeah, I love that one. After this I'll shoot you the intro and outro, and you could just download that into your thing, since we're doing it tomorrow. Well, we're gonna be working together a lot more. So let's just make things happen, and we love you all. I'm gonna go hang out with my wife and daughter now, and I love every one of you. Come back and watch the rest of it if you missed it. Thank you.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you.
Have a good one.